Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Tomarang, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack of Sims 4 for rent. It's always such a mouthful to say, but I'm going to be building a camper van. So this ends up having one bedroom and one bathroom, and it's built on, I believe it's a 20 by 20 lot off memory. If that's wrong, I'll have it in the build details in the description box down below. But yeah, this week I thought it would be really fun to sit down and build almost like a bit of a van conversion in the game. Now recently, and I'm not sure if you would have caught it, but I built a quite run down and quite cheap hostel in the world of Tomarang because we recently got the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, and with this DLC your Sims can technically have a hotel. It doesn't function the best if you actually wanted to have a hotel kind of business, because the way that the Sims 4 works, you could assign customers to come to your little hotel and make it so they're going to eat and sleep and shower and stuff. But the thing is, the way that the Sims 4 works, you can't really monitor it, so random Sims will just jump from each bed every single night. They're not going to stick into one like certain bed. And I was thinking, well, it's kind of like a little bit like a hostel. And so recently, yeah, I built this hostel in this world. It's very cheap, it's very run down, it's a bit manky, but I just kind of wanted to have that idea of your Sims when they go travelling and, you know, they stay in somewhere cheap just because it's cheap and they can afford it and stuff. But when I was doing that build, I was thinking, I really don't visit the world of Tomarang enough. I don't visit here in my own gameplay, but then also I really don't build here enough, and it's just such a beautiful world. And so it really got me thinking about all the different things that I could potentially end up building in this world. And there is this little section over here, which is kind of a little bit of a beachy neighbourhood, and so I was thinking, well, it might be really lovely to kind of follow on with the theme of Sims that are travelling to the world of Tomarang to maybe visit a hostel. What about Sims that are travelling to this world and they've got like a little camper van? And so this week, yeah, that is exactly what I built, and I really hope you guys like it. But anyway, moving from that and actually getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I've already figured out the size of the camper van that I wanted to go for. I didn't want to go too big because I wanted this to be like size accurate. In reality, you could extend this little rectangle that I've built out as far as you want, but yeah, I just wanted it to feel really realistic. Currently over here, I'm just finding a tyre. This one that I've used is from the live edit menu, and you can find it if you've got the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack. But I basically just popped it round to the front of the van and sized this little tyre up to be the same size. And then you can see I've now moved over and popped it onto the back of the van. I'm just thinking, although I've never stayed in like a camper van like this, I've stayed in a caravan. I feel like a lot of UK people have probably stayed in a caravan, but I've never stayed in a camper van. But whenever I do see them on like the motorway or something, you'll often see that at the back of them they have like a spare tyre, just in case they're out on the road, you know, their tyre pops or something, and so there's a spare just kind of like dangling off the back bit. Over here as well, this is something that I really wanted to mention because I was so happy with this. It ends up having a skylight in this camper van. Now, the way that I did it, I just built the roof in like 4 different sections, and then I added a 5th section, but I made that 5th section so it's got a little glass roof bit. And then underneath where it's sitting, I placed down this one, it's kind of like a glass tile object. We got it from the Island Living expansion pack, but basically it's this thing where if you place it down onto a floor, you can then see what's directly underneath it. It's meant to be used in like beachy areas, if ever you want to have like a little dock section and, you know, you want your Sims to be able to walk over the fishes and you can see them underneath, but you can also use them, yeah, as like a skylight. And so I plopped it down into the roof, and then above it I placed down a single tile roof piece, painted the roof pattern so it was glass, and then that way you can kind of see what's underneath it. I then extended the eaves out, and yeah, it looks like a little skylight. I was so happy with this idea. And by the way, it is functional as a skylight as well. Like, it's not purely for decoration. In gameplay, your Sims of a morning time, the sunshine will kind of like shine on the bottom of their bed, but then also in the evening your Sims can lay in bed and yeah, they can kind of see the stars above them. I love it. I just thought it was such a nice little detail to add into this camper van. But you can see as well, I've also placed down some sort of like little, oh, it's kind of like a trailer underneath the actual van conversion itself. This is purely just for like realism purposes, because the way that I actually built this camper van, I basically started off by building a 1 tile room and then moved on to the second level, and then I built the big rectangle on the second level, deleted the first level and then angled it down. Because the way that The Sims 4 worked, if I would have started off by placing down the rectangle and then I elevated it up to make it look like it was sitting on top of the van on the front, I then would have had to add a foundation to it, and the foundation isn't very realistic. And so yeah, if you build the room on the second level, delete the initial first room and then drag it down, you can kind of get it to function that way. But I placed down some sort of like trailer looking item underneath the room itself, just to add a little bit more realism to it. But you can see over here, I had some sort of like clipping with the trailer to the front of the van, and I wanted to try and find something to kind of fix it. I then had the idea of, well, we are kind of nestled right by the beachfront, why don't I make it so there's some sort of decorations leaning up against the van? So I placed down a pool floaty and I angled that to make it look like it's recently been used in the water, and maybe the Sims that live in this camper van, they've dragged it out, they've angled it up so all of the water drips kind of like go down to the floor. But then next to it, I found it's initially meant to be, I think, a skateboard. We got it from the Parenthood game pack, but it's meant to be a wall decoration. It's a cluster of 3, but I basically sized them up and then elevated them into the ground and rotated them, and I kind of disguised the other 2. So the other 2 skateboards are still attached to that object, but where I elevated them into the ground, you can only see the initial one. And then yeah, I made it look like there is a surfboard kind of like next to the camper van. To be honest, it was more so just to cover up the clipping of the initial trailer into the van's wheels, but yeah, I really like it. And then in terms of the landscaping, I tried to be quite cautious of how I was going to landscape it, because in my mind, I can't have loads of different flowers and trees directly around the camper van itself, because I'm thinking Sims have recently drove here and they've just parked up, they're going to the beach, you know, they're outside on the campfire and stuff. Realistically, there's not going to be landscaping growing around the van if it's recently just been parked there. We'll end up placing down just like a few grass clumps underneath the wheels. To be honest, it is maybe a little bit unrealistic, but it just felt a bit weird just not having any sort of landscaping, so I just tried to be very cautious of it. There is also some landscaping around the other areas of the lot, but yeah, underneath the camper van, I didn't want like big large bushes and shrubs and stuff coming out of it, because to me it didn't make that much sense. But something that I did want to mention about this lot, it is actually technically a tiny home in the game. Now, with the Sims 4 Tiny Living stuff pack, we've got this like residential lot type, which is a tiny home residential, which pretty much adds extra skills to your Sims, your relationships increase faster. It's just really handy if you're maybe starting out and you want your Sims to gain their skills and relationships really quick. And I am someone that, admittedly, I never build tiny homes. I could probably count on one hand the amount of different tiny homes that I've built. But when I was building this, I didn't toggle it so the tiny home residential lot type was on, purely because there is kind of like a visual thing that appears on the screen and it shows you how many tiles that you've used, but the whole time that you're building, it stays there, and it would just bug me. And so I didn't build it with the tiny home residential lot type on. But yeah, no, this little camper van is technically classed as a tier 2 tiny home. In total, I use 60 tiles out of 64, but, and I found this out when I was playtesting, if you wanted to, you could also make it so this camper van could be classed as a tier 1 tiny home, which is the smallest one in the game, and it could be 32 tiles exactly. Now, the way that you are able to do this, because I know that might sound really confusing, you don't lose any sort of gameplay if you wanted to downgrade it into, I say downgrade it, but just like reduce the tile limit. Basically, the way that I built the camper van, you see, I placed down like the rectangle, and then above it, you know, where I placed down the little like roof pieces and the skylight and stuff, that section is technically classed as another room. The reason for it is because I wanted there to be some sort of trim in between the wallpaper on the bottom level and then the wallpaper on the roofing. If you look at it, you can see I've got like a little white trim kind of like going around it. Because of that white trim, the game then adds extra tiles to the tiny home lot type. But when I was playtesting, I found out if you just delete the room that is on the roof section, you get rid of the trim, but if you do then delete that little section, it then becomes a tier 1 32 tile tiny home. I really hope that makes sense. I just purely didn't make it into a tier 1 just because I liked the aesthetic of having that little extra bit of trim in between the wallpapers. But yeah, you can definitely delete it and then kind of reap the benefits of a tier 1 tiny home. But moving over and actually getting back and talking about what I'm doing right now, as you can see, I'm just coming outside at the camper van and just placing down just loads of different like gameplay and hobby related items. So I placed down a yoga mat, so if your Sims want to, they can do yoga of a morning. I also placed down a little bonfire, or like not bonfire, like a little campfire pit section. There is also a towel that your Sims can lay on and sunbathe. There's also a picnic blanket, and then in front of the picnic blanket I placed down this new picnic basket, which kind of acts like a cooler in the game, but yeah, place that down in front of the picnic blanket. There also ends up being a tent outside, more so just because it gave like an extra something to the exterior decorations. I was thinking that maybe if your Sims are, decided that they want to go van life and they want to go and live in the world of Tomarang temporarily, and maybe they've got friends that come and visit them, their friends could potentially stay in the little tent outside. But then also on the outside I placed down a washing line so your Sims can, do their washing. There is also a wash tub, and then on the inside, you don't see it, but I do end up placing down a wicker basket. So yeah, your Sims, if you want to play with laundry, it has got that kind of functionality. At one point I did almost make it so this camper van was going to be off the grid, because everything that I've placed down on the exterior, apart from I think potentially the hot pot, I think everything else works off the grid. I placed down like armchairs around a little campfire, and I placed down like a washing line that your Sims have to do by hand. And so at this point coming into the furnishing, I was kind of set on the idea of making it to be an off the grid camper van. But the thing is, when I started coming in and I started doing the little bathroom section over here, I placed down the toilet and the sink, and to start off with, I wasn't so happy with the choices from the ones that actually function off the grid. But then I realised that for like the kitchen section, I wanted to use a little microwavable oven thing, and that didn't even function to be off the grid. And so I then decided to change it and yeah, make it so it's not technically an off the grid camper, but if you want to, you can definitely change out the appliances and make it ones that do function off the grid. But currently in here, as you can see, I'm just furnishing the very tiny bathroom. Now this bathroom, it's 1.5 tiles. Your Sims can still have a wee, they can still wash their hands, and they can still shower. Everything in this bathroom is fully functional. I did decide to make the decision to make it so there's only going to be one sink in this camper van, and it is in the bathroom, but I feel like for van life, realistically, you're going to have 2. I'm not too sure, but I did make it so yeah, this is going to be the only sink in the camper van, but I'm not too fussed. There is also like a nice little wash tub outside, so if you wanted to pretend maybe your Sims do the washing up in terms of like washing the dishes and stuff outside in like the little camper section. But you can see I finished off the bathroom, and now I've moved on into the rest of the camper van. It's very small in here. It's very tiny, but I like it. It's so different to anything that I normally typically build. I can honestly count on one hand the amount of different tiny homes that I've built, because I just never really seem to build them. But yeah, for this one, it's very short and sweet on the inside. But one thing that I wanted to mention, currently I've placed down one of them. It's kind of like an oven that stands on the counter rather than being merged into the counter. The one that I've used is from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, and this was fully functional, by the way. This whole entire kitchen that you're going to see, it is fully like play tested, everything worked. But the thing is that I found with playtesting, my Sims then only had a really small handful of different recipes that they could make, because some of the recipes are tied to the oven, but then the majority of the recipes that your Sims can make in the game is tied to the stovetop. And the way that I decorated this kitchen, I made it so there wasn't going to be a stove. But then when I was playtesting, I then thought of gameplay, and I just thought, to be honest, even though the little like uppy oven, it's not, I don't know what it's called, but like the little oven that sits on the countertop, even though that looks so cute and I feel like this is so van life coded, I thought for gameplay I'm going to switch it out. And so you'll notice in the screenshots that there is a separate oven and a hob. If you want to, you can definitely delete the extra hob and delete the actual built-in oven and replace it with this one. But yeah, I was just kind of thinking for gameplay perspective, I'd rather my Sims be able to make like scrambled eggs and bacon of a morning rather than cook a cake in the little oven section, but in this little kitchenette area, I do want to end up placing down a kettle. That would be really lovely. Of a morning, your Sims could make himself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, and then go outside and sit on one of the little armchairs and kind of like watch the sunrise or something. But on the opposite side of the wall is where the bedroom section is. So over here, I know it looks really tight, but I promise you it's fully functional. Your Sims can get round both sides of the bed. Coming into this build, I liked the idea of having a couple living in this camper van. Of course, it could be a single Sim if you fancy, but I had this idea of a couple who had recently sold their house or maybe sold their apartment or something, and they decided that they wanted to explore the world a little bit more. And so I was able to place down a double bed. On one side I placed down a bookcase so your Sims can maybe read a book of an evening, and then on the opposite side I placed down a little tiny chest of drawers, and yeah, both of them are fully functional. Did also want to mention, last thing, this is also technically a 2-Sim starter home. I didn't build it with the intention for it to be a starter home, but yeah, in total, this lot costs 20,463 simoleons, and if you have 2 Sims straight out CAS, they have around about 22,000 simoleons, and so yeah, your Sims, they can move in straight from CAS. But other than that, I'm going to go around the build, finish it off, make some final touches, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.